All right. Good evening, everyone. The time is now 7 p.m. I'm going to go ahead and call our Fruita City Council meeting to order. Sierra, would you please call roll?
Councilor Bremen.
Sure.
Councilor Purser. Councilor Cry.
Hi, here, present.
Councilor Miller.
Yes, present.
Councilor Hancy. And then Councilor Williams is excused absence and Councilor Cry is attending virtually.
All right. With that, we're going to move into our moment of silence and pledge of allegiance. If you'd all stand with us. We'd like to take a moment to allow all faiths and beliefs the opportunity for a silent prayer. Thank you. If you please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we've got an agenda before us. Are there any changes to that agenda?
No changes to the agenda.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as written.
Second. Please call roll.
Councilor Purser.
Yes.
Councilor Cry.
Hi.
Councilor Miller.
Yes.
Councilor Hancy.
Yes.
Councilor Bremen. Motion passes 5-0.
All right, we've got two updates tonight under our presentation section. Our first one is Ute Water Conservancy District, and we got Andrea Lopez here that's going to be presenting on this. So welcome.
Thank you. Whoever was before me was super tall. Even wore my heels tonight. All right. Just gonna have a couple graphs I want to share with you tonight. So I'm going to share my screen before I begin. All right. Well, good evening. Thank you so much for the invitation to come and present to you. I believe I've spoken with your livability committee, if that's still the correct name for them, a couple years ago, and they were really engaging and really thoughtful with some of the feedback they provided us in terms of outdoor watering schedules and some direction that we could give Fruita residents for how they could help be a part of water conservation. So briefly, I'm just going to provide an overview of who Ute Water is and how we became affiliated with the city of Fruita. And then I'll dabble into a bit of a snowpack update, which is usually at the top of people's minds this time of year, and just kind of give you a precursor for where we're starting our water year off of. So Ute Water is the largest domestic water provider on the Western Slope. We provide around 88,000 customers with domestic water services every single day. Our district is the largest between Denver, Colorado, and Salt Lake City, Utah. So we recognize our leadership role here in the community, and we understand that other smaller water providers in the area often look to us in a leadership role, and we take that very seriously. We were formed by a group of farmers back in 1956 who actually fought to bring domestic water services to the rural areas of the Grand Valley. And at the time, the town of Palisade, the city of Grand Junction, and the town of Fruita at the time, they all had domestic water services, but everybody who was in between those towns or those limits did not have water services. And so these farmers fought to bring domestic water services to those who fell outside of town or city limits. So our district spans from the Dibet Canyon to almost the Utah state borderline. It's about 250 square miles, and we have two mighty crews that maintain that distribution system 24/7. We have our treatment plant in Palisade, who have some of the best water professionals in the state, honestly, working for it. And so we're truly blessed with the people who work for us and are truly committed to making sure that we meet the needs of the Grand Valley area. So a little bit of the history on how we became involved with the city of Fruita. Back in the 1980s, the early 1980s, the city of Fruita actually approached Ute Water and asked if we would take over their water system. There's been a couple different stories of of what the tipping point was. From our understanding, there was some issues with maintaining infrastructure in the national monument and a lot of different precedents that were set once it became established as a national monument after the pipeline that ran through the national monument was put through. And so in December of 1983, the city of Fruita and Ute Water finalized our contract together after it went to vote to the residents of Fruita. And we began to serve Fruita residents around the 1983, early 1984 year. So we're a fairly young water provider in the water world. You have water providers like Denver Water, who are over 100 years old. For us, we're in our late 60s. And so we're fairly new to our relationship with the city of Fruita too, if you think about it in those circumstances. So snowpack is at the top of everybody's mind this time of year, and rightfully so. Our primary watershed is the snow melt off of the Grand Mesa, which is some of the best water in the world. It's not a selling point that we just make up. It truly is the most pristine water, some of the most pristine water in the world. And if you think about it, we're first users of that water, right? So it starts as snow up on the Grand Mesa, and the chances for contaminants by the time it gets to our reservoirs is little to none. It goes from snow into runoff and then fills our reservoirs. And then from there, we say it's the last time the reservoirs, our Jerry Creek reservoirs, is the last time that it sees sunlight until it comes out of your tap. And so we pipe it through the side of the Grand Mesa to our treatment plant in Palisade, and then from our treatment plant out into our distribution system. So once it leaves the Jerry Creeks, the next time it sees sunlight is when you turn on your tap or your shower and use that water inside your home. So our primary watershed is the Grand Mesa. We do have some secondary sources up in the Basalt area, Rudai Reservoir. We have water shares. And then we also have the ability to pull from the Colorado River, which we had to do in 2021 and blend it with our Grand Mesa water simply due to drought conditions and the lack of snowpack that year.
That wasn't as clean then.
No, and it was very noticeable. We weren't fond of it either. So we particularly pay attention to two of the NRCS snowtel sites. There's two up on the Grand Mesa that happen to fall very closely to some of our reservoirs up there, some of our very important reservoirs in our drainage. So we pay attention to Mesa Lakes and Park Reservoir and their data sites, as well as the statewide levels for the Colorado River Basin as a whole. So it's important to note, especially when we're looking at these graphs, that it's still very early in the water year. The water year starts in October. And so anything can impact what happens with the snowpack or the way that it runs off. That's what we saw in 2021. We had a pretty decent water year, but it was so dry that fall and that spring that the ground soaked up everything that it needed to, and it hardly left us with any runoff, even though it was average. So in front of you, you will see a graph. This is from the USDA NRCS snowtel site. This is Park Reservoir, and we're paying particular attention to this black line that's excitingly trending upwards this year. So that is 2023, and the water that Park Reservoir has received, the snowfall and the water equivalency that it has received so far year to date. So Park Reservoir is at 197% of the median with 97 inches of snow, which will equate to roughly 23.7 inches of snow water equivalency. That is very impressive. It is one of the highest trending snowtel sites across the state of Colorado right now. And I believe it's fighting for the #1 spot. Yesterday it was #1, and depending on how the active system performed today, we'll see those results probably tomorrow. So a couple of the other lines that I want to draw attention to is the max is obviously the purple line that is above all the other lines. And then the median is that lime green line that kind of runs in between. So we're obviously trending above the median. 2018, you can see more towards after like the May 1 marker And then between the July 1st, that was our 2018 year. 2018 and 2002 were very significant droughts for Western Colorado specifically. And so you can see we're doing significantly better than we were in 2018 so far. And I believe that 2021 is the dark green. I think I just switched. Is the dark green, oh man. Okay. Is the dark green between the lime green, the purple, and the orange. So that black line is looking really great this time of year. And some of the water professionals at work this morning were saying that they've never seen it this high before, which is very encouraging for this time of year. This is the graph for Mesa Lakes. So again, we're looking at the black line trending upwards, and the same years are highlighted in this graph as well for those very historical drought years that we experienced here. So Mesa Lakes is at 142% of a median, with 62 inches of snow, which equates to roughly 11.8 inches of snow water equivalency. So we're doing pretty great so far this year, and things are looking encouraging. But again, it's very early in our water year. Our biggest concern at this point is temperatures increasing early and increasing rapidly, where all of the snow runs off at once and our reservoirs aren't able to capture it as quickly as they can. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions and kind of plug that even though we're doing really great, we always encourage water conservation. And with our partners at the City of Grand Junction and Clifton Water District, we hope people embrace a suggested outdoor watering schedule, and that they can find some great resources about how to maintain your landscape here in the Grand Junction, Fruita, Palisade area versus a statewide level. So we have a suggested outdoor watering schedule at dripinfo.com that was tailored specifically to where we live, based off of the type of vegetation that we find here, the temperatures, the average precipitation, and things like that. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you might have any.
Go ahead.
Can you just say that website one more time?
Sure, it's dripinfo.com.
Do we have that posted, Mike, on our website? Is that something? Because
I will have to check, but if it's not, I'm going to create that community page with a bunch of resources for everyone to use.
okay, that'd be good. The other question I have for you, so you're saying that if it melts too fast, how big are your reservoirs, or how much water can you hold?
You're going to put me on the spot. I'm not sure. I don't want to give you an inaccurate number off the top of my head. So the way our system works is we have shares in roughly 36 reservoirs up on the Grand Mesa. We have shares in smaller reservoirs, the higher up on the Grand Mesa you get. And then we pipe them all down to the Jerry Creek reservoirs. And the Jerry Creek reservoirs is where we really strategize in how much we're going to draw them down, how much we're going to send, how much we're going to bring in from the Plateau Creek watershed. So that is all very strategic. Once runoff begins happening, how much are we drawing down those Jerry Creeks to make room for the water that's going to run off. I believe this time of year, the Jerry Creeks are frozen or fluctuate between being frozen and thawed. But usually around this time of year, they're at about an 80 to 90% of capacity. So I would have to follow up with you on our ability. We are working on expanding a reservoir, Monument Reservoir. We've been working on it for 20 years. But our hope is, the state's directive to us is storage is the key, right? In these drought years and stuff, if you can save more in really great water years, that's the key. But unfortunately, it's taking us over 20 years to just expand a reservoir that's already existed, not even building a new one.
Do you guys sell off any water if you have a really good year? I mean, to other water associations?
We do. So up in Rudai Reservoir, we tend to sell the water back to the state of Colorado, or we release it so that the 15-mile reach doesn't go dry. So we release it to help reduce the stress of the fish in order for them to maintain their ecosystem and do all the great things that they do for the river system itself. But we do have a certain time period, so a certain deadline that we ask the state to wait before we do release that water in case we need to use it like we did in 2021. Yeah,
What's the 15 miles that the Colorado River?
yes, yep.
How involved are you with the TMDL?
I am personally very minimally involved. Our assistant manager, Dave Payne, is very involved. He performs a lot of testing and field work for a lot of the irrigation providers in terms of water quality. And so we're a great partner with them for that. And I believe that he's provided some feedback to the state and the legislative representatives on how this will impact local entities here, and more of like a guiding principle than anything, because it really doesn't impact a lot of what we do at Ute Water. But we are an advocate and we want our partners to succeed too. So we're involved as much legislatively and in the regulatory world as much as they'll let us be. But Dave is fantastic and he's very involved in that work.
Also on the reservoir.
Yep.
We've been at it for 20 years. Is there an estimated time of completion?
Soon. So we are estimating probably in the next 5 years, being able to turn some dirt up at Monument Reservoir. We
This
just,
has all been in terms of like permitting and everything else.
absolutely,
Last 20 years.
yes,
So it
absolutely.
isn't even shovel ready yet.
Not yet.
Wow.
Yes, it's in the design phase from what I understand. Unfortunately, what we've experienced a lot is a lot of turnover with the state agency that we've been working in. So every time you go to work with somebody, they have to re-familiarize themselves with your project. So we start at square one a lot. You're welcome. Anything else?
Questions?
All right,
Thanks,
thank
Andrea.
you. Yes, have a great night. Thank you.
If there are any other like information you want to get, if you want to get it to Ciara, because
Wonderful. Yeah.
get it out to the community. And then I think especially in the spring, when you're talking about watering schedules
Absolutely.
and that, I
Yes.
think we do an educational thing every week in our Friday update.
Perfect.
So we could probably squeeze some of that
That
into
would be great.
that information.
All right. And if we can ever provide any other updates on anything else, please let us know because we would be happy to. The water industry changes day by day, it feels like. So have a good night. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, our next update is coming from the Grand Junction Economic Partnership, GJEP. We've got Curtis Engelhardt here. So welcome. Pretty new on the job, I think, right? How long?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I know you know Matthew because you see him probably
That's
often.
right.
not
I
the
do. I
rest
get
of
to see
us.
Matthew quite often. So, and Mike as well. But thank you so much for taking some time for me to come and give you an update tonight. I really appreciate it. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Curtis Engelhardt. I'm the executive director for the Grand Junction Economic Partnership. Took over that role in August of 22. But I've been on the Western Slope most of my life, grew up in Delta, was at the Mesa County Workforce Center for the last 9.5 years, the director there for 5.5 prior to that. And also live in the city of Fruita, lived here since 2013 and love it here. So I'll just let you guys know when next slide, if you don't mind. So I want to talk a little bit about who we are as an organization, what we do, how we do it, and then get into really the meat of how we collaborate with the city of Fruita, and then take a look of what my focus will be this year in 2023. So Grand Junction Economic Partnership, we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we act as the economic development arm for the entire Grand Valley, for Fruita, for Palisade, for City of Grand Junction, and Mesa County as a whole. And so we do that through incentives, obviously, but also working closely with our economic development partners through chambers of commerce, the university, workforce center, business incubator, and a number of others to make sure that whether a business is relocating here or expanding here, it's a seamless process for them. It's a painless process for them. Next slide, please. So our mission and vision is really simple. We are working to diversify the economy in Mesa County. We do not want all of our eggs in one industry basket. We want to diversify as best we can. That way, if and when there is a recession, we are poised to absorb that and be in a much better position to rebound. And we also focus on primary jobs. So primary jobs are anything that pays over the median annual earnings for Mesa County, which was just increased to about $50,000 annually. Since I took this job, if I had $1 for every time someone asked me if we could get another Chick-fil-A here, which there's nothing wrong with Chick-fil-A, and my daughters would think I was a hero if I was able to do that. But we're focusing on more of those primary jobs. And so a lot of the businesses that you'll see us bring in here are some smaller businesses with that high growth potential that have a good living wage. Next slide, please. I want to quickly point out, this is a North Star MOU that was created several years ago that really outlines economic development and key roles within the community. And so you'll see that GJEP is a lead on attraction, and we also work with expansion as well. The Grand Junction Area Chamber of Commerce focuses on expansion and retention, the business incubator on business creation and startup. So this is a good compass for us to go back and look at when it comes to, if there's new leadership currently in all these positions, and making sure that we're collaborating together and not getting in each other's lanes or stepping on each other's toes. Next slide, thank you. So what we do, we work to recruit new businesses and assist with local expansions. We work very closely with the State Office of Economic Development and International Trade through state incentives. We also have some local incentives that we're able to offer as well. But really, we try and remove barriers as well. It's not all about incentives. It's trying to, whether it's, a building permit issue or trying to make a connection to a community leader, whatever it may be, we try and remove those barriers. We call ourselves problem solvers because every business is different. And again, we want to try and make that as seamless and painless as possible for them. Next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about our 2022 highlights here. And so this is hot off the press here. We had 7 wins in 2022. So a win we consider is an expansion or relocation to our area. 9 local assists. So that means we helped in some form or fashion with their expansion or their relocation. And we saw 83 actual jobs created in 2022 and 333 potential jobs. So when we're looking at relocations or expansions, these businesses have a hiring schedule. So when they relocate, they hire a smaller amount and then continue to grow as the more they get established. So that's when you see the potential jobs piece. Average salary is over $56,000 annually. So those are all considered primary jobs. And then total capital expenditure of a little over $4 million. So our economic impact this year from the job creation is a little over 8.9 million. Economic impact for capital expenditures is a little over, 6.7 million. And then total economic impact is $15,690,242. So we can confidently say for every dollar invested in GJEP in 2022, we generated about $20 in economic impact. Additional highlights. So yes, we do the recruitment, we do the expansion. We also do some other pretty cool stuff. We approved our 26 Rural Jumpstart company this year. So Rural Jumpstart was created for rural counties. It's an economic tool or incentive that gives businesses a tax holiday for up to 8 years if they relocate to our area. So our 26 Rural Jumpstart company was approved this year, which makes us the state leader. And that's just been huge for us and really lucrative for businesses as well when it comes to trying to recruit businesses in. We also host the Western Colorado Economic Summit on an annual basis. That's happening April 27th. So mark your calendars for that. We'll be back at CMU. And last year we had 500 attendees. We expect around that again. CMU's capacity is 500, so we can't go much higher than that. But also marketing and communication outreach reached a historic high. And what that tells us is that our marketing efforts and strategies are working. People are very engaged with what we're doing as a county and are very interested in just different initiatives and different stories that we're putting out there. We also have a program that we call the Welcome Wagon. So in 2020, during the pandemic, we saw a lot of remote workforce relocate to our area. And what we wanted to do was help those individuals create community and establish roots in Mesa County, because we've also seen coming out of the pandemic, some of those businesses that said, yeah, it's okay, you go work remotely full time, are starting to try and bring them back in. And we want to make sure that they have roots in a community here, so that an opportunity to stay here. So that's a retention strategy with our workforce, and that's been very successful. Then I always want to point out just the pro-business approach and climate that's in Mesa County. When we bring prospects in, they're always in awe of how easy it is to set up a meeting with any of you individuals or other community leaders, or set up tours or whatever it may be. It just is definitely our number one strength. And I call it a feather in our cap for sure when it comes to recruitment. And then lastly, we hosted our 4th annual West Slope Startup Week, which brings entrepreneurs and startups to our area for a week-long training series. And that's been a really good recruitment tool for us as of late. Next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about the Fruita and GJEP collaboration. And in my opinion, I feel like it has been really great over the years and want to see that continue for sure. So these are the different events, committees, and trade shows we've all been a part of. So 8 different events through the years, whether it's attending the Fruita Economic Development Forums, whether it is facilitating a panel or sitting on a panel. Most recently on our KAFM radio show, we highlighted the Fruita Business Park. So a lot of events happening that way. The city of Fruita is also well represented on our board. So Matthew sits on our board, and we also have an ex officio seat for the city manager for the city of Fruita as well. So they're always able to stay apprised of everything happening, as well as help set strategy and direction for our agency. And then lastly, the trade shows. I haven't been a part, I wasn't here yet, but I've heard really good things about just the collaboration with the trade shows. So all of the outdoor rec trade shows, we had City of Fruita representation there. I know Mike went to quite a few of those as well, whether it's the outdoor retailer shows or Interbike or Eurobike or the Sea Otter Classic Road Trip. We seem to collaborate really well on that. And that's something I definitely want to see continue. The trade shows obviously went away for a while in the pandemic, but we're starting to see those come back again. We were actually at the outdoor retailer show in Salt Lake City last week, and it's getting back to the pre-pandemic attendance from a vendor and business standpoint. And so we're excited to see those starting to come back on, and would love to continue to collaborate with Fruita on that. Next slide, please. Looking at Fruita from a business focus, recent wins for the city of Fruita: Canfield Bikes relocated here. FHE started up a new frac lock division here, and then Scored recently relocated here in 2021. And they're an app company that scores businesses based off of a number of different categories and allows consumers to research the businesses before they purchase through them. They actually relocated here in 21. So Canfield Bikes, we just gave them a check for about $24,000 for their strategic fund. That's not all that they get more than that, but that was based off of new hires they brought on and the employees they were able to retain, as outlined through the strategic fund proposal. Rural Jumpstart, again, that's a great one for us, and FHE and Scored both took advantage of that. So 13 new jobs, average wage there is about a little over $47,000 annually, with the potential of 53 jobs there. Capital investment of just under $580,000, savings to Fruita businesses, just under $70,000 in tax credits, and $162,500 in grant dollars, either through the Office of Economic Development, International Trade, or GJEP. And site visits. So site visits are big for us. When we get a prospect that is serious about our area, we bring them in for a site visit and we show them different properties. We make different connections for them. We talk through incentives, and we've included the city of Fruita in 13 different site visits. And we've also showcased Fruita properties in 75 different proposals. When that's kind of the step before the site visits, is where we put together proposals and ship those out. And we're always trying to include our Fruita properties as well. We currently have one prospect that we're setting up meetings with OEDIT next week that's very interested in the Fruita area. Don't want to talk too much about that because there's still some confidentiality stuff there, but again, trying to get Fruita involved as much as we can. Looking at 2023, and it's bolded there, proactive recruitment, and that's something that is really important to me. I feel like GJEP slipped into this concierge type model where they were kind of waiting for businesses to come to them. And I don't want that to be the case. I want us to be proactive and be in front of businesses as early and often as we possibly can, whether that's through meaningful trade shows, whether that's through our marketing strategies, cultivating relationships, whatever it may be. I want to be proactive in our efforts. We also want to increase our funding efforts so we can continue to increase our impact in the Valley. Developing our economic impact and ROI data. You just saw some of those numbers, but we'll be putting that in an end of year report, shipping that out to our community as well as our investors. And then we'll continue to lead a strong economic summit. And lastly, strengthening and building relationships with the Office of Economic Development and International Trade is really important. They hold the keys to a lot of prospects. That's where a lot of proposals come from. And so we want to ensure they're thinking of Mesa County first and often when those proposals are coming in. So that's a little bit about GGEP and how I've been able to collaborate. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have, but thank you for your time.
All right, thanks, Curtis. As questions.
I have a couple. First one is, what are some types of different types of incentives or things like that to have folks come, and can you expand just some comments on how do you support Fruita into, like, what are some of the things you talk about when you talk about Fruita and trying to get them to come to the Valley? If it's to the business park, like what are the selling items that you give?
Yeah, so some of the incentives, the Rural Jumpstart one is a big one that we use most often. Another one is the job growth incentive tax credit, and that's where businesses are able to pay 50% of their FICA on every new employee, so it can add up pretty quickly. There's a couple of I guess boxes you have to check to qualify for some of those, and the big ones are if it's an incentive with the state. If you're doing an expansion, it needs to be a brand new business line. So Rural Jumpstart, you can't compete with any company within your county or a contiguous county, and it's got to be brand new. And then for that job growth incentive tax credit, you have to be considering another area outside of Colorado, and you have to be hiring a minimum of 20 jobs to qualify for that as well. So there's some different indicators, and OEDIT. So that's OEDIT's acronym for Office of Economic Development and International Trade. What they're trying to show is that their incentives helped bring a business in to the state. We do have some local incentives. They are fairly small that we get both through the city of Grand Junction as well as Mesa County. A few examples of those is Coors Tech is doing a big expansion. So they qualified for some small incentives to help with some of the fees that they ran into, some of the impact fees they ran into. Westar Aviation, they were considering a big expansion, one either in Grand Junction or at another location that they have. We were able to put an incentive package together to help keep them here, which equates to about 82 new jobs and about a $4 million capital expenditure whenever they do that. As far as Fruita, so like when we showcased the business park, we had Cody Amandi come on and we interviewed her for 15 minutes about just the business park, why people should take a look at that, costs per lot, that kind of thing. And then as far as what we do when we do a prospect visit, we try and bring in the city manager. We try and bring in a city council member. So Councilman Bremen was invited to the last one we did, and we just have a conversation about why Fruita and really let them sell it for, I mean, the great place it is. And if we have businesses that are incentive hunting, I guess is what I would call it, we honestly try and weed them out, and we're looking for businesses who really are bought into what we have to offer as a valley. And so we can sit them down in front of your staff who are incredible and just let them run the show because they do an incredible job of selling City of Fruita. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you tell me how our 13 site visits and 75 proposals compare to Grand Junction and Palisades numbers?
I don't have numbers as far as City of Grand Junctions or I mean, I could get those for you. I would say they're much higher than Palisades and probably much lower than the City of Grand Junctions. And it's just from a area standpoint more than anything. And just from an inventory standpoint when it comes to properties and what we're able to gather. So when we have a proposal come in, what they'll ask for is, they'll look for something, say, 15 to 20,000 square feet of warehouse space or a certain amount of acreage. may need to be by a rail spur. And so we get all of those qualities that they need. And then we canvass our brokers, and then we get the properties back and we send those. And we use what's called Proteus, which is it's a recruitment tool. So it's not just blasting them with a ton of emails with a bunch of PDFs. Proteus creates their own unique website or URL, and then we can upload documents to that, and we can actually track what they're spending their time on, and then feed more of that too. So
Cool.
yeah.
And then in the proactive recruiting, are you considering, or maybe you already do this, like engaging with our staff, Junctions, Palisades staff, and maybe even counselors and leaders of the city, like to chat about what the city is actually like, what kind of business the city actually hopes to see, like, so it goes both ways. Is that something that is active?
Absolutely. Yep. I would say very good open communication with all of our city leaders, and really wanting to hear their interests and what kind of companies they want. Companies that are more, recession proof, like manufacturing or IT, or, some of those businesses. And so absolutely, those lines of communication are definitely open, and I think are used often.
Thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions, Matthew? You usually get to ask them every month, don't you?
And this is, but now I'm wearing really
A different.
council hat, and I'm just going to apologize for the question ahead of time. It's a Grand Junction Economic Partnership, but yet you represent the Western Slope. Is there any appetite to changing the name to be more inclusive of the Western Slope versus just Grand Junction? And I know we have a meeting tomorrow morning.
Yeah. So we're doing strategic planning tomorrow morning. So it is a timely question. Absolutely. I mean, it hasn't been brought up to me. This is the first it's been asked. I would absolutely be open to a conversation around it. So, it is, we do get questions of, so you're part of the city of Grand Junction, because it does. I mean, I can see that for sure. And we're not, we're our own nonprofit. So, yeah, I mean,
Teaser for tomorrow, just.
Yeah, I had the exact same thought, because I just think initially when someone just sees it, I mean, I'm not questioning anything that you all do.
Mhm.
It's just the name. It already just implies one thing instead of
sure.
entirety. Like it could just as easily be Grand Valley Economic,
Yeah. What we've found though, is nobody knows where the Grand Valley is unless you live in the Grand Valley.
There.
And so from a marketing perspective, that's something we've been trying to approach a little bit, is getting away from the Grand Valley name, because it's similar to when, it used to be Mesa State University, and everyone says, well, just call it Mesa State College. Why don't you just call it Mesa State University? And everyone said, because everyone thinks Mesa's in Arizona. Right. So then it went this whole name change. So we do get that. I will say the city of Grand Junction is our biggest investor.
Sure.
So, obviously it would need to be a broader conversation.
Money talks is what you're saying. Answer that. I just want to put it on the record. No.
History, when the North Star report was first being developed, that was part of it, was looking at the name, and there was a lot of workshops done, and it just kind of stalled out. This is not the time and place to kind of talk about why, but there was an initiative done at the time of the original North Star report looking into that. And it was something like the Grand Valley, there's like a Grand Valley, Michigan. I mean, there's some confusion around
I
that.
think Western Slope was another one that was
Mhm.
too generic.
Yep. So first of all, and so two other things, Rural Jumpstart Program, I work for a company that is part of it. I think we were the first ones on the Western Slope. As an employee, it rocks, especially around tax time. And then I can't remember the name of the program with land that's available for economic development. I'm trying to-
Yeah, it's IDI.
Yes.
Yep.
Is there IDI property in Fruita?
No.
Okay.
No, so IDI is Industrial Development Incorporation. And so that is its own separate 501c3. And it's a board that's made up of GJEP appoints some board members, the chamber appoints some board members, but basically they have a land bank that's drying up pretty quick. They don't have a ton of inventory left, where they were able to use that as just as an incentive to offer different land opportunities for businesses. But they are eager to acquire some more land. So that's.
So what's the process for that? Is that given by individuals looking for tax credits? Is it given by municipalities?
A lot of
I
it.
know it's separate, but it's part of the toolkit that you.
Yeah, it can be both. A lot of it's been through municipalities. So, if you look at Mesa County and Clifton, Clifton is one of their big priorities. That could be a good opportunity for them to carve out some of the Clifton land that they own or buildings they own and look for an IDI partnership. That's just an example. So it can be both.
Mike, is that something we've ever, or Joel, is that something we've ever looked at?
It has not. It's been a heavy Grand Junction Chamber effort in the past, and so we haven't. Well, I take that back. There was one time we looked at it in 2016, maybe. We had some conversations about potential with some property, but it didn't seem to make sense at the time. So.
I'll save it for tomorrow.
Yeah. Let's get them all out now. We're already.
I mean, I'll ask one more. I'll ask one since I haven't yet. So you're talking about being proactive. So what is, and you may not know at this point, but what do you, being proactive for Fruita, what does that mean as far as your job and your role for what you're looking for?
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good question. And Mike and I have had some conversations too about we did have I used to sit on it as a workforce center director, but we had an economic development group that was Fruita focused that met on a monthly basis. And that's something that I would love to see brought back because that's how, again, we're able to just communicate and stay apprised on all the happenings in Fruita from planning to new developments or whatever it may be. And so that would be one way. And then I think too, some of these different trade shows, I think there was some good success there where we'd like to re-engage Fruita. And not that there was, and it was COVID is what happened and why it kind of fell off. But so bringing back some of those activities, absolutely. But I think just that economic development group, I learned a lot from what Fruita was doing, and then it helps us really sell Fruita that much more when we're meeting with prospects.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions, but I wanted to comment on, I attended my first, the summit last year and it was fantastic. I learned so much and it was just really good information. It was really well presented and organized and I'm really looking forward to it this year.
Awesome.
Thank you for letting us know when it was, because I was actually just the other day looking for the date. So.
Yep. Yeah, we'll be sending out a save the date towards the end of the month.
Awesome.
So, yeah, but we'll be back at CMU this year and away from the convention center. So we'll work through some of those pain points with parking and breakout logistics, but we're hopeful for another successful event.
I have one more question. I'm sorry. What is there anything that you'd like to see on the city of Fruita's part in regards to partnering? Is there something you aren't
A different wrap on the board, or is that what you're asking? No.
Are you volunteering?
asking?
There's a meeting tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, we're a little more relaxed group here than probably what you get in
love
in Grand Junction.
Gosh,
So
just pull up a chair.
Yeah.
I appreciate the question. And I think just from an advocacy standpoint would be fantastic and talking about how economic development and GJEP helps not just from a recruitment standpoint, but also from an expansion standpoint. I think a lot of businesses do not realize that. So if you're meeting with businesses out in the area who are looking at any type of expansion, we can help. So, and I think just being a champion for us is just what we love to.
Great. Thanks.
all right. Any other questions or comments? Well, Curtis, we appreciate you coming in and giving us an update. It's
Thank
great
you.
to have you
Thank you.
here and learning a little bit more. Matthew will fill us in tomorrow on the name change.
I think Greg Kate will come and talk to us about that.
Yeah. All right, with that, we're going to move into our public participation. So this section is set aside for the city council to listen to comments by the public regarding items that do not otherwise appear on the agenda. So with that, we are going to open it up to public comment. Is there anybody that'd like to speak on this item? Tiara, you seen anybody online that would like to speak?
No comments online, Mr. Mayor.
All right, with that, we're going to close public comment or public participation, move into our consent agenda. So these are items where all conditions or requirements have been agreed to or met prior to the time they come before council and all be voted on in one final action. So we're going to open that up to public comment. So if there's anybody that'd like to speak on our consent agenda, now would be your opportunity. Are you what? No, all right. I'm seeing none here. Is there anybody online?
No comments online.
All right, then we're going to close public comment and bring it back to council. Are there any questions or do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, we've got a first and a second. Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Ciara, would you please poll council?
Counselor Cry,
Aye.
Counselor Bremen,
Yes.
Counselor Miller,
Affirmative.
Counselor Hansi,
Yes.
and Counselor Purser.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, with that, we're going to move into our public hearings. We've got one legislative hearing. It's resolution 2023-02. It's amending the 2022 budget with supplemental appropriations for building repairs and maintenance at the Fruita Community Center. And it looks like we've got our Assistant City Manager Shannon Vasson here to present on this one.
Well, as always, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council for the opportunity to present. The resolution before you tonight appropriates $39,150 to the Fruita Community Center in insurance payments received for damage to the gym floor. It's uncommon. We do budget amendments following the end of a budget year, but the timing of this was difficult. If you remember, it was the Friday night before our last city council meeting. Our crews worked really hard to try to work with the water and kind of reduce that throughout the next week. We didn't actually have the cost of what would be paying for the demolition until towards the end of December. So we've now paid all those expenses. They are 2022 expenses because the work was received in 2022. So then we need to do a supplemental budget amendment so we can cover those expenses for last year. I do anticipate another supplemental budget amendment coming for insurance payments for this year, and that's for when the flooring is installed and purchased. I think that should be, manufacturing should be done of the floor soon, and they'll ship that out to us for install, hopefully towards the end of March. But always happy to answer any questions, and that concludes my presentation, Mr. Mayor and City Council.
All right, with that, we're going to open this up to public comment. If there's anybody in the audience that'd like to speak on this item. All right, I'm hearing none. Is there anybody online?
No comments online, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we'll close public comment on this and bring it back to council. Does anybody have any questions regarding this item?
Yeah, I just want some clarification. So this is really just an in and out piece of insurance proceeds coming, and then we've got to authorize the expense. So what is this? This is just for, you were saying there's 22 and 23.
There will be.
Because the whole thing's quite a lot more to get it all done.
It
the
is,
actual
yeah.
cost.
So this is just for the demo, which took place in 2022.
Okay. what
So with our accounting standards, anytime we receive a good or service in the year, we have to charge it to that year. So this is just for our 2022 expenses. I think the total cost was about 44,000 total, and that was for the demo. And we did some mold prevention or mold mediation kind of before the demo. So that brings us to the 39,000 after our deductible. But yeah, then we'll have more expenses this year for the actual materials and then the labor to install the wood floor.
And then have we figured out what we're out as a city just on our deductible, or how's that all falling?
I believe just the deductible
Of 5,000.
And, yeah, we've opted to be reimbursed by CIRSA towards the end of the process, just so we can kind of see everything they're going to cover. But I believe that they'll cover everything but the deductible. And they're also covering a few other things like a portable volleyball net, so we can still have volleyball and some of the other schools, potentially some lost revenues as well.
They've confirmed they're covering. I think he's just saying after all those expenses are done, then we will get the reimbursement, but only a $5,000 deductible. And then there's some expenses. The only other expenses will be, we are adding some new things that we were planning to do this year on the lines, and some new lines arrangements and things like that that don't fully get covered. I mean, there's a replacement, but it's far, far less than what we plan to pay for the refinishing of the floors this year. So
So the budget we approve, this will be less.
Oh, but by far.
Yeah. We have $35,000 budgeted just for the resurfacing of the floor. So I think we'll spend below that just for the additional things for the court.
How does the, as private citizens on our own home, if we have a claim, of course, it goes into history and our rates can go up. How does that impact on the city municipal type of situation when we put in a claim for such a significant amount?
Margaret's coming up, so I'm going to defer to her.
Margaret's our point person with CIRSA, who's our insurance provider. Thanks, Margaret.
Hey, Margaret.
So the main question was the deductible.
Well, how does it impact the future of us? Like as homeowners, if we put a claim in, we tend to, our premiums go up in future years.
Typically,
With that, how does that
when we
impact
look at their
us?
loss history? In this particular claim, they're going to probably subrogate it to the custodial company's insurance. And so it wouldn't go against our claim history in that particular case if they're able to recover the sums from the custodial people's insurance company.
So that's still to
But
be seen.
typically, when you have a loss, they're going to weigh that in the scheme of things, and your insurance premiums are going to go up or down.
So we're still in negotiations, figuring out what's going against our insurance versus.
Right, and it might be a drawn out process for a year or so to determine.
And for us, we're separate from that. So
So
we pay our deductible, CIRSA pays for everything, and then CIRSA deals with that with their
It'll create
insurance,
another-
not us.
Another process.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
That will be impacted in some fashion, hopefully for a good one.
it's possible even through that process that we might get our deductible back, but for $5,000, we're not gonna.
Let it play out and we'll see how
Yeah.
it goes.
Right.
Well, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
I move to adopt resolution 2023-02, amending the 2022 budget to appropriate funds in the Fruita Community Center for building repairs and maintenance.
Second.
All right, we've got a first and a second. Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, would you please poll council?
Counselor Miller,
Yes.
Counselor Hansi, Counselor Bremen,
Yes.
Counselor Purser, and Counselor Cry.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, we're gonna move into our next item. It's the schedule for the 2023 capital projects. We've got Sam Atkins, our city engineer, here to present. Give me one. Fast the drink. Oh, I got one.
As Sam comes up, I'll just do a quick intro here. We've covered what all these projects are a few times during the budget process. So tonight, if you have questions, we're happy to give a recap. If you want any details on a project, the purpose of the presentation tonight is really for Sam to touch on a few nuances to the schedule that we put in the packet. Obviously, there are components of a schedule like this that can change, and we'll keep you updated both in the weekly update and likely about a mid-year update on projects. It might not be exactly the mid-year, but depending on how the projects are progressing. There are some projects that we have control over and some that we do not have control over. And so we just wanted to, it's the very beginning of the year, wanted you to see, all the projects that you approved in a budget and kind of see what we are tentatively planning. Just so you're aware, internally, we've already gone through a process of who's the lead and who's the support on every project. And as added many different people throughout the organization to keep all of these moving along. So with that, I'll let Sam give a brief overview and answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I'm Sam Atkins, city engineer. I didn't want to, this was in the packet. I didn't want to read every project to you that you can read yourself. But I did want to go over a few.
Butter coming out of your mouth though, so.
Oh,
Put in my head, so.
We can read.
Yeah,
are you a books on tape kind of guy?
yeah.
So starting at the top, the EV charging station, I've got some dates in there, but technically we're still waiting on Excel in order to provide the power. Sounds like our stations are being shipped out this week, so they'll be ready, but we have to wait till we get the power out here before we can install the stations themselves. So as we get more information on that with Excel, we'll provide update, and we might Like, is this something we would just maybe update periodically in the Friday update?
It would be, yes.
So that might be something that I do.
We want to read that is what you're saying. Just ask.
Yeah, read the update. 'cause
All right,
this-
just checking.
This is inaccurate.
Yeah.
No, so just moving down the Mesa Street improvements, we have 3 projects on here that kind of have to be determined. That project, we were given a grant through CDOT. We still have no contract with CDOT, and so that is going to determine how the schedule plays out. We're likely going to have to go through the design review process with CDOT, just how they handle their business. Whereas we had this thing designed previously, but certain things are going to have to meet the standards of the Department of Transportation. So that one's kind of in limbo.
If I could add, just a reminder on that one, we received grants for the concept years ago, then we received a grant that paid for design of that years ago. So we had it ready to go. CDOT has their own design process review. It can take up to a year at times. We received the grant or were awarded the grant in the summer, early summer last year. And we still are waiting on the contract, but we're not alone in that. Many communities are still waiting on their contracts. It's just the time frame that CDOT's behind on with getting those out. And then that funding has federal components to it, to our knowledge, which also adds much more requirements in the construction phase. So we're not 100% sure, but I mean, this could be in construction next year, and we hope to get it started this year, but we're kind of at the mercy of their time frame.
I think we're going to have to go through some easement acquisition, like temporary easements for constructing someone else's property, which we might kind of do anyway in our projects, with permission, not, hey, we're just going to build something on your. But sometimes making the grades work, we're tying into existing facilities are outside of the right of way. And so that's something we're going to have to overcome as well. Going down to the Business Park 16 Road rail crossing, that one's one that's kind of been out there for a while. We're kind of waiting on the railroad in order to proceed with our work. So that's one there. Touching on the Civic Center improvements, those are slated to begin at the end of the month. That's what I would call the dance hall, and the storage room is being converted into office space workstation locations. And then going down to the FCC pool slide, that one's kind of to be determined as well, I think. So that's kind of being run through the recreation department, but I believe they had a design when the pool was installed. I think that has to be looked at and refreshed and up to current codes. There, the codes might have changed since the time that was done. But anyway, once we get more information on that, we can we'll disseminate that information. But that's kind of all I had. If you have questions, I'm more than happy to attempt to answer them.
I just wanted one comment. I'm glad you kept it to one slide tonight.
Yeah, it's not even a slide, it's a PDF, but and I failed on the second slide, which should have been questions.
Does anybody have any questions on these items? Yeah.
Under others, the Reed Park design, should that be September of 22 to March of 23? Or
Yes,
September 23rd.
I was like, I think
we
we're already in that, right?
we're in it.
Yeah.
We started it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I understood
Oh,
how,
that's correct.
because then, no, it's okay.
22.
Because that comes before the improvements, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good catch.
Just for my own clarification.
I have a couple questions. Where's the broadband or substation, whatever you call it? Where's that physically going to be?
It's going to be located at the Public Works shops in the northeast corner.
Okay, that's right. And then with the Mesa improvements, do we have to deal with CDOT because it hits 6 and 50? Or what, why are we dealing with
So-
CDOT when it's a road within?
We received
have
over
to
$1
work
million
with-
from CDOT.
Yeah.
Discussion over. Yeah.
But
Dollars, we don't have to
Right.
deal with. No, no.
but it was federal funding that flowed through CDOT is our understanding.
Yeah, there,
We keep learning as we go. We just know we applied for a grant through CDOT, received the grant, but it was tied to a larger.
They're managing the funds, so they're gonna manage the project. I was just wondering if it was because,
Yeah.
is the design is to go from Circle south
to the highway.
all the way to 6 and 50.
So you're correct. We're not working on a CDOT roadway by any means, but it's through their funding. Yeah.
And the funding was both state and federal. We just happened to land on federal and we didn't have any control over that. But we will have a permit through CDOT for the work that is being done in their right of way, because we're going to actually enter their right of way at the highway because it extends pretty far to the north. Like right up against the Fiesta Guadalajara building. So while it looks like South Mesa there, it's actually in their right of way facility.
Good point.
Any other questions? Thank you, Sam. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we're going to move into our city manager's report.
All right, thank you, Mayor, members of council. Just two things, our two workshops coming up. So the January 24th workshop will have two items. The first is the post fee options of rollout that we promised to bring back in January. And then we will have the residences at Fruita. They are coming to present. We'll invite the planning commission, I believe, as well. But if you remember in our code, when you are thinking about applying for a planned unit development, you can go through a first step of a concept plan at a council workshop, council planning commission workshop, to do so that they can provide that concept, get any general feedback. So remember, these are not detailed plans. It's before they spend all of that money to get an idea if it's something worth moving forward on or not. It's not an approval, but it's to get an idea if this seems right. The residences at Fruita, it will be a market rate apartment complex next to the La Quinta is where they are looking to do that. So those will be the two items on January 24th. And then the workshop on February 28th, we will have the overview that Councilmember Bremen set up with the United Way director about general social services throughout the valley and the 211 program. And then we will have a discussion on our mountain water rights and property up there for pertaining to one of our strategic plan goals. And that's all the updates I have
That's
tonight.
February 28th.
Yeah, that's the February workshop. So just two items on each coming up. Just wanted to, so you have that kind of in your mind of what's coming. And obviously those are plenty for each of those meetings, but there could be room if we had something quick we needed to add on.
You have something quick to add. So,
Sure.
all right, thanks, Mike. With that, we're going to move into our council reports and actions. So our first item is proclamations. So just the annual review of those to see, we said, I know we've talked about this in the past, that we bring them all in the beginning of January so we can go through them. I don't know if we want to change our philosophy to put it at the end of December so we don't miss some of these first proclamations of the year. We may just want to change our procedure to put it in front of there. So I'm going to open up does anybody have any questions or comments? Because we've got a couple tables in here. The ones that were issued in 2022 and then the ones that were issued prior to 2022. And then it has some of our past council objectives in how we in the past have talked about multiple, proclamations, trying to combine them into one, and multiple organizations having them as one. So I didn't know if there is anything anybody opposed to on here that we need to discuss, or if everybody's good with what's being presented here that we've done. And one of the other things I know council has talked about in the past was having a local representative here to attend to accept the proclamation. And that's kind of one of our standards. And so because I know I've talked about that. I get emails from people nationally that, hey, we want to put this proclamation on here, and they just want to get a proclamation to have it read, not that they care about our community, so.
Right.
I'm gonna open it up to any questions, comments.
I like your idea of talking about it sooner than we're doing, just so we, because I think like Crime Stoppers, that one was that one caught us off guard?
Martin Luther King Day.
Oh, that one. Anyway, yeah, it'd be nice to be proactive and bring it back in a month or so prior to the next year.
Okay,
Yeah, be able to reach out.
Matthew?
I had sent Mike a question in terms of if a council member has a proclamation that they'd like to put forth. Is it still through the same process in terms of sending it to Margaret, doing that way, or as council, can we bring it up at a council meeting and say, I would like to do this?
In the past, we've told all the counselors, if you've got something that you want to bring in, you just bring it up to council. But that's up to this group to say, yeah, do we want to go through a formal process, or are we, me personally, I'm okay with, I mean, that we work so well as a group. If you've got a proclamation you want to bring forward. it's like-
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, is that Ken out there? Okay.
It's me.
So, because I want to make sure I get this right, because there's one that I'd like to put forth. And I can see where there'd be some pushback in terms of anti-Semitism, in terms of some of the stuff that happened over Christmas. So should the process be that I send it out to Mike, who then distributes to the rest of the council to kind of get the feedback? Yes, we're comfortable with this. We're not comfortable with putting this on the next agenda. Is that, I just want to make sure I understand this properly. So don't.
So the way I like my process to run is, yes, to have whatever information out before a meeting. So that way we all have time to
Well, this
process.
one would be, yeah, one I'd want to have processed.
Yeah, to have the time to process it, and then that way we all can have a good.
'Cause I want to make sure that, yeah, if there's any concerns or questions about it, it comes out first.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I say. What do you, the rest of you guys feel?
Yep, fair.
Ken, you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I know that in the past, there may be something that happens that we would like to get a proclamation out sooner than later. So I think that there's always going to be the room for, if we need to push something through, I think if it's important, we can bend over backwards to do it. But yeah,
I think
I'm
Ken's
with-
Ken, you're referring to the inclusivity one, because we were one of the first ones in the valley to do that, and we jumped on it because of local events, not,
Yeah.
you know, so there are gonna be stuff, and that's, we always want to have that opportunity to discuss.
Yeah, keep our fingers on the pulse of our community specifically, and yeah, be able to react.
Then I'll put one forth in terms of, I guess it'd be for the February 7th council meeting.
And it could be always, so the other thing is, it can always be at our other items, or it could be put on the agenda for the workshop too.
Okay.
So I mean, we don't have to have that 30 days if we're discussing it. 30 days is what we're giving everybody just for the logistics, I think, of staff.
Yeah, I think what's helpful from the other process that to still occur, but it doesn't have to be the other process, like is making sure the group's okay with the wording, and that we have wording, and that we know which agenda to put it on. I mean, really, when it's coming from one of you, obviously, if the council wants it and you're formulating the message, it doesn't matter if there's a group here or not. It's your proclamation, right? It's your statement. So in this case, a good example, I think Matthew has example language and has brought it up tonight. I think it's good. Bring it up in a council reports and actions in a regular meeting, bring it up in other category at a workshop. If timing works, and Matthew's saying February 7th, if he sends it out, I think we need to avoid sending out and then we can't have discussions if we send it out. You can pass information on, but we can't make decisions like, yeah, I want it. Yeah, I don't, or no, I don't. That's voting outside of a meeting. Right. And so we want to avoid that. So in this case, it would be very relevant or probably the best would, if Matthew, we get it sent out to everybody prior to next week's workshop. And then during that, even just the other category at the end, you can say, yeah, I had a chance to read it. I feel if you have any suggested changes or not, and then we know to put it on the February 7th agenda. And that's always helpful. Ken raises a good point, or Councilor Cry raises a good point, because, there are times where it goes pretty quick, and we handled that really well. We drafted something we sent it out. We said, if you have any, if there's any major concerns, let us know, but let me know. And then that would have delayed it had there been some, but there weren't. And we had it on that next agenda and we were able to get it out without waiting weeks. And you know, that events could occur where we need to do that. And so timing can play a role at times, but and I think we can work through it. But and then we
I mean, and the bottom line is we have to have 24 hours notice if we wanted to do a special meeting. So I mean, we do have that option as
True.
well. So if it's something that was
that's a good point.
already timeline and we needed to vote on it, then we do have that option.
And this one, February 7th is perfect because there's other events that we're working on.
Okay.
Right.
Cool.
Thank you.
I would say we have a couple questions I think we'd like clarification on related to just in general the proclamation. So for example, there are a number of proclamations that we do on an annual basis listed here in this item. We're basically asking for specific direction on if these are ones we do every year, we don't want to have to put them through our process to bring to workshops unless you would like that. But we do still want to have someone we're working with. I don't expect the city clerk or the deputy city clerk to just come up with language for proclamations. So we're working with those groups.
Well, Mike, I'll interrupt, minus the few that are really city, like Arbor Day.
Exactly. Yeah.
City one, if we look at, there's a couple on here that were pretty much city related, Police Week. There's one.
Typically, that process is the staff, the one.
Is that, okay, so they're
So
right.
they're still requesting it through the process and submitting the language to our office so that we can,
They're treated like an outside agent.
they're treated like an outside agency and we just still follow that process.
The city clerk's office processes them, you could say, but are not coming up with the language.
I think we've done some of that in the past, which I think has been. Staff.
Yeah, when somebody's wanting you to draft a proclamation that you know nothing about, it's hard to do a good job.
It's a reminder, what is keeping the lights on?
So that's child abuse.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was the.
If that's the right one, yeah.
After school program.
Or is that the after school?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the blue light one, what, or the, oh no, all right.
Young child, or
What was that, Ken?
isn't there one like a young child, month of the young child, or is that?
Yeah, that's the
different?
Child Abuse Prevention Month. That's what I'm thinking of, because it's the blue, one of them's the pinwheels. And the other is the blue light.
So keeping the lights on, we just did, and it's like an after school programs and keeping.
Thank you.
All right, Mike, what else did you have?
Do you have any other questions, Margaret? I just want to make sure.
Recommendations that are listed here, that not having to bring them before you take action on them in a previous meeting, workshop or anything.
My question to staff is, are there any that, according to what we said before, that are like what we think are overlapping, you know, that are similar proclamations? I'm just looking to see, because I didn't see any that.
Those, there's two of them at the top of the second half of the table, or table 2.
Oh, the
Uh,
child abuse and then month of the young child.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think we
but-
would try and encourage those to be combined. And it may be that they were done in separate years and called different things in those separate years.
Yeah.
Once again, these are not automatically issued. Somebody still has to request them through our process. But if they are requested, then the city council doesn't have any objections to us going ahead and bringing it before you at a council meeting for presentation rather than discussion first.
That, I mean, I guess that, back to what we're at, what your staff is asking for, are there things on here that we want to direct staff to have on an annual basis? I think that's one of the other things, not that, yeah, we're good with all these for this year, but is there something that, some of these that we say, hey, every year we want to make sure we're doing some of these,
So you want staff to initiate them?
right, to initiate, that's what I'm thinking.
I don't want, well, I personally don't want staff to have to initiate any of them. But how I have understood it is the first table are the ones that we don't need to go through the process if if someone outside comes and requests, right? But
Right.
the ones on the second table don't fit in that category currently.
They do. It's
do
just they weren't
also. They just
issued
weren't this- Okay. So
in
they
2022
both tables fit that.
category, correct?
Okay.
Is,
So I guess my comment to that is that if we as so what a proclamation is us as council are saying, hey, we support this in our
Yeah.
community. So I don't have a problem with staff initiating if it's because it's our direction to say, yeah, we really feel like teacher appreciation week is important. So we don't want to, like, you look at all the ones we missed in 2022. Are these important that we should have?
no, and nobody requests. The
Right.
problem that I have a little bit with staff initiating it is it's just not that you're writing a proclamation or copying one from a prior year. You're trying to coordinate to get a teacher there or somebody to accept it. And sometimes those have not gone real well. You can't get anybody to show up to accept the proclamation. So if it's initiated outside, then there's somebody that has interest in it and is going to show up and accept that proclamation.
Because when I'm surprised on is National Police Week.
That is strange.
So Chief Kraus must have been.
Yes. And you can see, I mean, the ones that are listed on the second table weren't requested in 2022.
Right.
We requested in prior years, but not in 2022.
Well, that's why I'm saying, and maybe it's not a matter of, when I say reaching out, it's like you contacting the person that had it before, and if they want to, giving them enough notice to go through that process again, or to fill out the paperwork, not necessarily that we have to go and find the person and do all of that, but I know like Deb does that with, when we have boards and commissions, they're coming up to the end of their term. We send out a letter that says, hey, so I'm not saying anything that would be, oh, this is a whole bunch of time, but it might be a letter.
We're
an
just talking
email,
about contacting the person who initiated it prior to.
and
see
then
if-
saying, yes, hey, are you interested in doing this? If you are, again, hey, here's the link to fill out the paperwork and whatever else. And then it's not on us, but we don't miss an opportunity for some of these, because I think some of these are important.
But other than getting the wording, they actually don't have to do the paperwork. That's the whole point, right? If they're on this list, we could possibly say, you don't have to keep going through this process every year. We want the wording from the outside person, but they don't have to do the 30
Council doesn't-
day.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's really
You still have to initiate it every.
Right, yes.
Yes.
yeah. So I mean, we can, our policy says they need to initiate it. We don't automatically issue them.
Yeah,
So we would need to change our policy if we want to automatically issue some of those.
but they wouldn't have to go through all of whatever.
I mean, they typically would already have the proclamation and maybe just change the dates and give
Right.
us that information.
Yeah, and that would be it.
Yeah,
They'd still submit it like what,
Yeah,
through
yeah.
the normal process. It's just they,
they
If we give them enough-
can send them a draft of the one they sent us the prior year. That's
Is
fine.
that something you would do like right now, like just at the beginning of the year, email all of these contact people, or are you wanting that done like the month before?
I'm okay with whatever. If it's easier to say, let's send out a letter to all of them and
The
say,
timing of these is kind of funny. There's like, May is just nuts. How many,
Right.
there's 7 of them.
Right.
June is crazy. And then there's like nothing in the fall, which is, I don't know if there's like something, timing wise on that or not, but
yeah, 'cause
But
we
yeah,
do
if they're-
7 and we break them up between 2 meetings, you still have 3 at one and 4 at another. So
yeah,
It's a good time.
yeah.
I'm okay with saying, yeah, let's send out a letter at the beginning of the year, and if, here's our process.
And do you want that letter sent to everybody that was issued one in 2022, or do you want us to send that letter to people that were issued proclamations prior to 2022?
I think both of these tables myself.
Well, the ones that you're saying that are issued prior to 2022, they've done it prior to 22 and in 22.
Oh,
No,
they didn't do
Oh,
it in 20.
so 2022 did not happen.
right.
I think it'd be good to, I agree with Janine, do both lists.
And then moving forward, just whoever was
That year.
Yeah.
Then they
Okay.
can re-bring it to us after that, if.
Well, so we
don't-
essentially just send out a reminder to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
think the
at the first
responsibility
year,
should still be on them.
We'll just need to build a proclamation list and contact information
Yeah.
for all of them.
I'm
Okay.
good with granting per se pre-approval for all these listed, and if there's any new ones, go through the approval process. throughout.
Correct. Yeah.
The ones that weren't included on here were ones that were individuals. So we were honoring
Right,
maybe
right.
Ellen Roberts or something like that.
One
So I did not
time.
include those here. I thought they was,
Those are always
Maybe.
open, because I think most of those, it's council or staff are recommending us to do that.
or somebody.
We're correct. This gives us good direction on, okay, send reminders, still their responsibility. If it's any of these that go through, that we accomplish that with, we don't have to bring to a workshop, spend any time on it. But any new ones outside of these tables, then we'll just have them go through the normal process. We'll go to a workshop, and that way it's first time you guys get to decide if you want to proceed or
Get
not.
added to the list, and come December, we'll bring them all to you.
Yeah, come December. Yeah, that sounds like.
Thank you, Margaret.
That's true, yeah.
So the process, maybe we're notifying people at the end of the year. So especially when you look at the January ones.
Actually, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Instead of January, we're saying, okay, and I know December is a busy month, but it's.
Because it is pretty common. It's happened multiple times with Martin Luther King Jr. Day, just based on the schedule and the holidays. And so it's not the first time, but we're usually trying to get that right at the end. We know that we've done it every year and we've struggled with, that. So this helps.
They struggle with the process
Do
because
that.
we build the process and then all of a sudden we're breaking the process that we set up.
And it works great for all the new ones. And this helps us clarify what to do with the others. So thank you.
All right, so that gives you enough direction. Is that enough thumbs up?
Mike
Mike?
said I'm good with.
Yeah, all
Yep.
right.
Summarized it.
All right, well, good. All right, well, thank you for bringing that up. And then the other next item is the discussion. And it says possible action. I'd like to cross that and action to cancel the Tuesday, July 4th meeting.
And
I mean, I don't know what discussion there is to have. Is that everybody good with that?
Talked about it one other time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
Motion.
do
good.
need a mo, we do need a
Amy's
motion
going
for the
for it.
record. Go ahead.
I would like to move that we cancel the Tuesday, July 4th, 2023 regular city council meeting.
Second.
All right, we got a first and a second. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, would you please poll council?
Counselor Hansi,
Yes.
Counselor Bremen,
Yes.
Counselor Purser,
Yes.
Counselor Cry,
Aye.
Counselor Miller,
Yes.
motion passes 5-0.
All right, with that, we're gonna move into our individual council reports. Ken, did you want to start? We haven't heard too much from you tonight.
Sure. Fruita Youth Action Council met last Monday. Oh, man, they met, it wasn't yesterday, so it was last Monday. Not a lot to report there. They're doing some, figuring out how they're gonna recruit, for their next session coming up, here in the spring. They also made some cards to hand out to, the elderly, with acts and little sayings of kindness. So, yeah, that's pretty much what happened at that meeting. And the other meeting is forthcoming.
All right, sounds good. Thanks. Matthew? Should I say Bremen? Because that's what.
Last Fruita area of chamber meeting, it was a big budget review meeting, talk about the deficit last year in terms of ending up in the negative and how to reverse that for this year, which is clearly a combination of looking at the dollars being spent in new revenue opportunities. The new board of the chamber was elected. Karen Martzoff is the new chair. We did talk about the annual banquet. Thank you, Mike, for calming my nerves in terms of the gym floor is going to be ready by April 15th, right? Mike, the floor is going to be ready by April 15th, right?
At this point, yes.
So, and so those were the main topics of discussion. I do have a question. I was asked by somebody on the state legislature to be part of the Mesa County Judicial Review Board. So reviewing the judges in Mesa County. Is that a conflict of interest? Because since we have our own municipal judge.
I think that's a question probably for me.
Correct.
Yeah. Hey, counselor, keep me out of making big rocks into little rocks in some penitentiary.
Sure. So the
More of a
municipal,
license plate guy.
municipal judges are not part of that same review and retention process. So I'm assuming this is the state's Judicial Performance Commission. Is
Yes.
that, yes.
Yep.
So there would not be a conflict there because the municipal judge is not subject to or part of that. It's only reviewing Mesa County judges at the county court and state court levels.
Okay. So that has not been approved yet, but I just wanted to make sure there was not a conflict. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And that's it for me. Oh, GGF retreat tomorrow morning.
All right, that sounds all right. And you'll get the name in there, right?
Yeah. All right. I'm going to, I know where it's going to go, but I'm going to fight for it.
Good idea. Yeah, I think it's.
You got thumbs up, I think, right?
Yeah.
All right, Janine?
Amy and I both actually were at the Arts and Culture Board meeting last week, and they are working away on their Coco Vino fundraiser event for the project that was presented to us about the revolving art on the streets, the heart of Fruita. And that is it's Friday, March 10th, I believe. And it's going to be $35 to attend, and we're plugging away on that. And then my other two meetings are tomorrow and Thursday. So that's all I have for now.
Chocolate and wine.
Yep,
Oh,
you got it. What's it called? Lady of something.
Oh, yeah, is it Lady of Fruita?
No,
No.
like something later.
Sanctuary lady, anyways, the old Catholic church. Yeah.
Clearly, they need to put the name on the invitation.
Yes, exactly.
None of us know it.
Well, we know where it's at.
Yes.
Old Catholic Church.
Exactly. Well, because originally they just had the address on the invitation, and then it turned out it wasn't even the right address. Like they were going to be sending people to somebody's house. Yeah.
All right, Amy, you're up.
So the reason that I was at that meeting, the Arts and Culture Board had asked the Historic Preservation Board for some contributions to their backpack. They're partnering with the Mesa County Library on a backpack program for kiddos. There's like 3 separate focuses, some like outdoor activity, some art like projects, and then like agriculture, I think, if I understand correct. Right. Super cool little program that they're starting. So I was just presenting the 2 things that we had, the coloring book and the tour, the walking tour, the 2 things that came out of 2022, which was also the focus of our historic preservation meeting, was who we wanted to basically contribute those to, as far as getting them out to the community and who to engage with on that. We're going to focus heavily on the local elementary schools, probably going into the 23-24 school year, because curriculums are pretty much already set right now. So that'll be a big focus for this
Isn't
year.
history part of those?
Yes, it is. So that's exactly, and like 3rd grade, I think, is the focus on Colorado history specifically. And a couple of the elementary schools have historically done some focus on Fruta's specific history. So hoping that we can kind of get that going again. And then I don't know if you guys got contacted by Cindy Sovine from Highline Internet or Wi-Fi. She had reached out to me after the Fruita, our business after hours. I had chatted with one of their employees, and she just wanted to reach out and see if we could kind of start conversations about the connectivity that'll be coming after we get like our
middle mile.
done. They do the last mile,
Mhm.
and we'll be offering extended services to Fruita, and they're really excited to get out here, and they really just wanted to kind of engage with us and engage with our community. And so I did give her your phone number, Mike. I don't know if
Yeah.
I reached out to you.
We've actually already had meetings with them. They just had they've had new people come and go during that period of time, but we have a meeting, staff already have a meeting scheduled I think it's next week. Yeah. So we have been coordinating with them based on our project, and then they have to go through the permit process for, rolling it out in Fruita. One of the biggest, they wanted us to do locates at an alarmingly fast rate that we're not able to do, to make sure you're locating everything, that you're not hitting things underground. So we've been pretty honest with them at how quickly we can do it with the staff we have and things like that. And, but we are working with them. So, because I think it's looking like there's another company looking to try and attach on as well, but it's looking like they'll probably be the quickest to get going, I would say, in Fruita.
The question I know we've had in the past when we're talking about, that type of internet, we create the middle mile. Is this something that we put out for bid, or no, it's open to anybody to run fiber as long as they want to put in that fiber to each home?
Yeah, it is open. So it's kind of like an open source that they can go through, and then Region 10 manages that for us. So they manage the middle, they manage the CNL, and then that way. But they also have to go through the permit process of where they put their fiber through the city, because you can't just dig anywhere, right? So they're going through that process. It's not an approval of their internet or not, it's approval of where they lay their lines, but.
And just, I've been asked to review some potential legislation on micro trenching
Yeah,
as it relates to 2-inch or less conduit, specifically around fiber that's being introduced in the state legislature. In
mhm.
terms of what those new rules may or may not be this year, but just be aware that there are new potential regulations about micro trenching coming forth. And then if you or anybody else in the city is interested, we finished a case study with Boulder in terms of some of the challenges they had in rolling out fiber and the amount of damage that was caused.
Yeah, we would be, because we've been following that in quite a few communities. And a year ago, we did a review. We joined with Mesa County and the city of Grand Junction, and and the city of Fruita. So all of our engineering staff and public works at all three, we had a group that wanted to do micro trenching. It makes it a very quick rollout and all sorts of things. But in our review, we declined because as a region, because there were too many issues that were that arose because of that. And what microtension is, just really briefly, is not you're only going down a matter of inches, maybe just a foot or just past a foot. I think it is. I don't want to say 17 inches, but I don't know if I'm
It's
remembering
still
that.
being just
Yeah.
up in the air for the regulation.
And you're still there's still a lot of things you can run into, and then the repatch of the roadway or the curb or the yard is usually they want to go right down the middle of the road. And there's if you it doesn't matter if you're resurfacing the road, but when you're replacing the road, it causes a pretty big there's some issues, and there's other things. I don't want to get in all the details, but
People call it potholing for a reason.
yeah,
So because that's what you're doing, is just creating potholes.
right.
I know Casper, Wyoming's having struggles with that.
Yeah.
They're rolling it out. They've been doing it for like 6 months or so.
Yeah,
I just want to be careful
Actually-
that it doesn't come across as a conflict of interest.
no,
me,
I think it's good.
Just
that
something.
doing it, let us know. We did contact, so the company that was proposing here, and we were all very interested. We were interested in the time frame. We were interested in a lot of things, but we did contact the cities they had done work in and other cities that had done it. And it was unanimous across the valley with all the engineers and street experts that it wasn't something any of the cities were going to entertain currently.
Well, I just want to throw this out and find out from council. Do we want to have like an update on fiber at another either council meeting or workshop? I mean, is that something?
I think we're at least a year out, correct?
I think it'll be good timing to have an update once right now we're waiting on Region 10's approval of our request for proposals for the CNL. And once we get that out and we've reviewed and we're going into a selection with getting that constructed, and we have that time frame. Okay, the carrier neutral location will be completed at this point, and then our next steps for going out for last mile or where we're at that point. I think that would be a natural time to give a really good update. But until then, we're just going to be saying we're waiting on this and we're trying to get that.
All right, but just keep it on our radar. So we're.
Yeah, I'd
Sure.
appreciate strategic meetings as needed.
Right.
And then she did ask a question that I didn't know the answer to. She asked about if they could host like educational fairs, like if they rented like Reed Park. If there was any restrictions for that.
No,
But
Yeah, we have an application process online for any private entity or public entity looking to rent a park for something. It helps us go through mainly what are they needing? Are they needing power and all those types of things? But so you can have a permit, because to use public land, obviously you have to have a permit to do that. But it's pretty simple. So I mean, they could, and we could,
that was all.
we
that
can
I
walk them
knew.
through that pretty easily.
sure specifically if.
Yeah.
Restriction. It's-
In fact, that's probably something we could just point out at the meeting next week and as well, how they do that. Yeah.
I think that's all I have.
All right, Aaron.
Hope you guys saw my email last night. Just things. Just a couple action items for us to make. The old merry-go-round, I think we just do we want to instruct staff to hold on to that and put it on as a later date to, like in a workshop, to say, hey, how do we want to proceed in utilizing this? If we do want to, I think it would be valuable to at least hold on to it until we make a decision and not, oh shoot, we just threw that in at the dump yesterday.
It's so funny, the memories that brings.
So just quickly, I thought I already had direction. We are going to do that.
Okay.
We were going to work with, try and get some ideas from local artists, and it might have been Aaron before you were on, but it came up quite a while ago, and it was like, we're not just going to get rid of it. We got to figure out a way to make it artistic.
Your meeting, they weren't sure.
Yeah, so I'll pass it on to the park board that yes,
Mhm.
we are going to hold on to it. And I think it'd be great if staff can set up a time that's would be strategic for us to say, how do we want to proceed to do this? If we want to just
I think so.
back up and refurb it and throw it up in or Circle Park.
That's what I'd
That
say,
in the
Parks
middle
and
of
Rec, I think, or Arts. and
Yeah, I
Culture
think-
Board working together.
We would just get some quotes from local artists, and typically with artistic things, and then please no offense, but committing our like all the good things we've had have come from basically a call for artists, and we just have this idea and they put the creativity and come in, and then we just make a selection and do it. But the idea that Mark and I have talked about was having, getting those kind of proposals and then incorporating it at the park somewhere where there's an artistic
I like that.
piece.
All
But we can definitely bring that back when we get to that point. But you're right. We don't want it to just all of a sudden, oh, it was trashed, and
Yeah.
we don't have so.
Put a little sign on a piece of paper that you have to throw away.
Post-it note.
Yeah.
So I'll push that back. But I like that idea to put it out to the art community and give us ideas to support or not. The other one is dog park name. Do we want to have the community vote on a name and not just call it Fruita Dog Park?
I don't like that idea, but that's just because I've sat through so many processes where if we look at the city logo, that was another process that went through that was just kind of a waste of time to have public input. Talk about naming stuff. I've seen this with the chamber, and it's like people come up with stuff and then you have to have a committee that picks it, and it's
Well,
to me, it takes a lot more time, and half the time it doesn't come up with a resolution, and then all of a sudden you have to pick the name anyway.
And we're getting to a point too that the dog park is supposed to be done by early March, so we don't have a huge time frame. I appreciate what you're saying, Joel. I don't know if Sarah, you can help us out. Like if we do push out to the 3 elementary schools in Fruita, if they want to jump on or not, and then submit names. But if I like the idea of having the buy-in, but how can we narrow the focus on saying, hey, this is what you can do and come back with names, however you want to have the school submit your top 3 names to us. That's up to them, but maybe we keep it simple so it doesn't get out of control.
If we get stuff back and it's the big, top one is Purple People Eater Dog Park.
Yes.
And then we end up doing like, Fruita Fido Park,
That's one thing that we need to manage. I don't know if you guys have had it, staff has had experience to where we can roll it out appropriately, because I don't want to take number 1 name just because that's the number 1. If it's not appropriate, it's next.
I've gone through that nightmare.
So
I think it's more of a challenge to go. There's things that we need public input on, stuff like this. I think people are just happy that we're gonna have a dog park.
Yeah.
And, I know like we do Fruita Bike Park. It is a location-based thing to say Fruita Dog Park. So that's my opinion. So Amy sounds like, yeah, she'd like to. Ken, what do you think?
I guess I'm still formulating thoughts on it. I didn't.
What?
I don't like. I sort of agree with Joel. I think every time we've sort of sent things out for committee, it just becomes a big to-do. Yeah,
I also agree with Joel on about it is, and the logo is a perfect example. Like it just was a lot for you all. I know I wasn't dealing with any of it, but
It was a good process. but
Yeah.
It was also a challenging. I think we came out with a great solution, but it was a solution that was initially pretty much.
right, yeah.
We implemented the recommendation over a year later after the
Right, yeah.
process. Yeah.
And yeah, and that's the possibility is
There were some
all
differences.
sorts of submissions and you don't really want any of them. And so then that is very difficult. Like that's a very difficult position to.
Because we initially for the logo said, hey, we're gonna give up to $500 out. And then you come back in the community, it's like, well, who won? Well, we didn't like anything. So well, why are you so cheap? I mean, there's a negative side.
Yeah.
The logo, though, it has a lot more, I don't know.
That's
I,
true.
I mean, like, think about like the kids.
There's
that
definitely
do
differences, yeah.
Elementary schools, and they did a fantastic job. Like they got to, they got to submit names for Rimrock and for Monument Ridge, like.
Well, it was
If you look at Rimrock, I know a lot of the back end of it. It was very.
And I might be-
driven by the
This is not a sword I'm gonna die on, like,
No.
I think, you know.
I would just ask the question, I think for us, it'd be helpful. So if you don't want Fruita Dog Park, because I think that would be the dog, that would be the default, right? So if the council doesn't want that, then my only suggestion would be, so I think that's the first question, or is it that or not? And then if it's not, I think what Councilor Yancey's saying is our recommendation from staff would be as narrow as possible. It is not recommended for any type of thing to just throw something out online and say, just in general, but it's more specific, like these schools and we want it with these themes or something, helps. So.
It's the Fruita Bark Park.
Bark Park.
I like it.
Is it a
I like
bike
it
park
too.
or a park park?
It's the Fruita Bark Park.
I love it because it's right across from, I mean, pretty
Yes.
much right across from the Fruita Bike Park. So.
Yep, I love it.
Bike park. It's only one letter, right?
Not where we're leaning is just to call it Fruita Bark Bark.
I think it's there. I say yay.
You have to say it like that. Bark,
Yeah, you
bark.
could you could make it really
It's got a
quick
ring to
tonight.
it. It's simple. It tells you.
It's
you're in
quirky.
Fruita.
Fruita
It says
Dog Park
dogs
is
and it says
easier
it's
to
a
say.
park. I mean, it's got.
I like
I guess
the
we don't
park.
need to solve it tonight, but
It's solved. I'm okay with that. I
we put the name out for vote.
All you need is motion and enough votes.
Yeah, all we need is a motion and a, Ken, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm for it. I'm for it.
Well,
All right, you better put, you better.
Make a motion.
I'll put forth a motion. We call the dog park the Fruita Bark Park. But I can't.
All right, we've got a first and a second. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, would you please poll council?
This is this group, like.
All right, Counselor Bremen,
I have to say yes.
yeah, you can.
I know.
Counselor Purser,
Yes.
Counselor Cry,
Aye.
Counselor Miller,
Yes.
and Counselor Hancy.
Yes.
Motion
All right.
passes.
All right, that was
5.
easy. Look at that.
Our decision making, this is fantastic.
Just check two things right off the.
Two more items that I have in our park and rec. I have three more. I'm just thinking of one. Reed Park plan. Mark made the comment of, I hope so there's that additional parking that I mentioned. He made the comment, I hope it stays in the budget. Is that a true statement?
Yes.
Mhm.
The original process in the budget did not have that built into it. But all these estimates, right? But all the costs. And then what it also didn't. Typically for the state. Maybe what he's saying is
We have all these components like this project's gonna be an interesting one. When we bid it out, there are company that's putting in part. Got another company.
Right.
Pitch in, right? And then there's gonna be general contract that we setting out these facilities, parking, electric, and making those.
We lost your mic.
Eh,
Ken didn't need to hear all of that anyways, right?
I was reading his lips.
Oh, all right.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's great. Well, we'll do a recap just in case. No, Ken, all we're saying is we had concepts, price estimates. We're working through the design as was shown earlier. We'll go to bid on some of those components and so we're hoping that all that can fit in because during the design, we've had some creativity come across being able to add some parking. I think we feel it's a very important piece of that park. I imagine most of you do, because it's all on street parking essentially and a
Right.
small parking lot on the end. So getting as much as we can there is a goal. And so if that would be something we would bring back if we're running into estimated or, real cost issues. But
Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't want to lose that.
yeah.
So yes, thank you for making sure you bring it back to us if things change. Let's see. I'll just leave it to one more. Do we want to discuss that email that came through at 4:00, 4:03?
It's part of public record.
Okay.
I
I don't care to necessarily talk about it. I don't know if we want to. Did you get that email? Okay, all right,
I mean, it's public record and it's there
perfect. I'm done.
to inform us. Okay. All right. Thank you, Aaron. And I want to thank you, Aaron, for putting together this. I told him when we talked earlier, I said, I'm going to have a really long reports and action. I said, well, put it in writing. So, and I encourage everybody to do that. If you have a long report, put it in writing so then we can hit key highlights and we don't forget what we're talking about and we keep on task. So thanks for doing that for us. I've got a couple things. The Fruita Chamber had their after hours that we hosted, so I appreciate we saw a good turnout for our council. I wanted to put out to Mike. I know you're having, just on different events that the city puts on and getting council active in it. In the past, we haven't seen a lot of active participation on a lot of events from council. And so I didn't know if that's something that we want to talk about as a council to say, hey, what does that look like? Like the art stroll we get a table at the chamber banquet, so that's one of the things that we all can go to, but is there other events that us as council, should we have access to as a counselor where, we're maybe not paying fees, but it gets us more involved in it? That would be my question.
I support that.
But then I'm not opposed to me paying for stuff when it's something related specifically that I'm going to do regardless. So, but I think in the past, we've had some events that council, nobody shows up. And I think when we're talking about community engagement and that, if there's an incentive to get more of us there, it might work. Cause there may be some things where it's like, I don't personally not super necessarily want to go, but if it's something that I can go to that helps show that.
I really feel like we should be supporting like the events that our, boards and commissions put on for sure. We really should be trying to at least, show up and show that.
Do-
we're there and-
Do we put it on it as an item at our workshop saying the upcoming events are?
We could, cause like the chamber has monthly events and I try and go to those as much as possible just because it's in the business community and we do get passes to that. So you don't have to pay for that. So there's things like that I think are important to show the business community.
I think we, in addition to the weekly update, just kind of putting them in the calendar in these meetings during council reports and actions. Oh man,
Oh, man.
we, Even with a new battery, we often, we're always talking about them, or mentioning them, whether it's you or us. So I think just in council reports and actions, if I not only mention them, but who can be there, who's planning to be there, would be a big help, because then do we have representation or do we not? I mean, it'd be pretty quick and easy, right? We're already mentioning them, so I'll be there. Who else is going to be there? It also helps us know if all the city events we're posting on the calendar. So if more of you, if a quorum is there, it's fine. But there are some that are outside that we may not be doing that. And if all of a sudden we hear, okay, 3 of you are going to be there, great, we'll put it on the calendar.
But I don't want cost to be prohibitive for us being involved in the community. I think that's part of my issue, is that if there's something that somebody says, oh, I really, I don't, want to pay.
I'm with you on the chamber events. I already, I'm a chamber member. I pay to support those. The chamber ones.
Right, but I think where it gets like, the business incubator events, GJEP events, stuff like that, who we're partners with in the community. I think if there's opportunities for us to go, we should go. Now, if we're looking at like galas, like St. Mary's, our community, I think that's outside the scope of the council.
Those are a little different, but I mean, even if you're talking about the summit, we all have the opportunity. We pay for that separate as a city.
Yeah, we pay 10 grand.
Well, but we also pay. We also pay to attend that. Am I correct?
It's an expensive
If
too.
you want to go to the business summit or the economic summit, we pay for whoever.
Right.
So, I mean, but I agree. I think if there's other things outside of just the city that we have those partnerships with, I would like to see us in the next year really be representative, because when you sit here and you listen to GJEP talk about, okay, what they're doing, and yeah, they didn't have numbers, but Grand Junction's numbers are way higher.
So
Yes, I like that.
174,000, just as a reference.
I'm saying about the business recruitment side of it, the numbers of businesses recruited in that. So I think us being in the community is going to help. And so I just want to get you guys' feedback on,
If we could be on there, this would be great. Like on those agendas.
Mhm.
but if any of us hear about extra things, like you're involved in GJEP and all of a sudden they're having an event and
Mhm.
I support you, Mayor.
letting us know so we can get to Mike, or let Mike know so we can say, hey, you've got this partnership event coming up, and
Who's going?
And of course, if you're going representing the city to most of these events, we can get it paid for, so you don't have to do any reimbursement. We can just register you. But I think what Councilor Breeman's a good example. There's a ton of valley-wide events, and which ones are truly, associated with. But that's always if you have a question, I think that's a good one to bring up at these in your reports and actions, and see if the group feels, no, I think that we should cover that, and we'll make it happen.
I like it.
all right, just don't want everybody to know our opportunities that we've got. So, all right, with that, I'm going to go into, wait, I gotta get on the right. Now I'm switching from email to the other
I
thing.
have a question kind of on reports.
Yeah.
So in an ongoing effort not to get phone calls from Mary Elizabeth and Mike, I want to make sure I understand. So I'm working on an initiative that's similar to what was put on after racist remarks were made to the CMU football team, where people signed on. So I'm involved with something like that. Is it out of line, or will I get in trouble? Can I email each individual council member to ask them to put, if they're willing to put their name on this proclamation that would be in the paper? And if that, so is it appropriate to do it just as your name, or do we put our title on it?
Mary Elizabeth can answer this one, but in the past, council said, if we put our name on, or if we put our name on it as an individual, we're okay. If we put our name on it as a counselor or mayor pro tem, then we need approval from all those sitting here, because then we're saying that we represent
the body.
Is that,
Well-
Mary Liz? Well,
Oh, that was some excellent lawyering.
yeah, thank you. That's not my primary job, so.
You just play one on TV right now.
Yeah.
Hey,
So,
where's my gavel? I lost my gavel. No.
so yeah, Commissioner Breeman, I would agree with that. I don't know if it's an official policy, but just sort of process that for something like that, I'm presuming that you are working on this in your capacity as an individual and not as a council member. Is that
That is
accurate?
correct.
So therefore, using then sort of your position as a council member to contact other council members, I would do that outside of their, if you're interested in contacting them as individuals, that's fine. Don't use the city's emails. All these folks, you have, every right to contact people that about that, but they would be signing on as individuals if they choose to do so, and not as representatives of the city.
Okay, so also don't use city emails is the second part of that. Just, I want to make sure
Correct.
I don't get a call from you later on.
That's right.
And
Okay.
another thing, Matthew, I'd say is, again, back to what our whole thing is that if it's something you feel is important that you want our titles on it, then a workshop or a council meeting during reports and actions, it's, hey,
Correct.
you guys on board? If you are, then,
Okay.
then we can do that.
Right.
Right.
If you would like an official statement from the city, that would be the procedure and process to have that.
I wasn't going down that path. Once again, just want to make sure I don't get those phone calls.
Mary Elizabeth, we're tired of paying her to make so many phone calls to you every week.
But as a general rule for all council members, if you are involved in something in the community, which is great, as an individual, and you would like to reach out, just like you might be reaching out to 20 other people that to members of council, do so via their personal emails, and not via the council emails.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, anything else you want to add to my report? No, all right.
I'm sorry. I thought-
Anybody else? Ken, did you have anything else to add? Or are you okay?
Go ahead.
All right, then, because
We're
we're,
trying to be proactive and not get in trouble.
I know, I'm okay with
This is a
that.
substantial, this is a shift for me.
I know. That's good. All right, so with that, we're going to move into executive session. So we're moving to executive session for discussion and possible action and consider a motion to convene an executive session regarding personnel issues under CRS 24640224F for review of the restatement of the city manager's contract and to receive legal advice regarding the same pursuant to CRS section 24640224B. So I need a motion to go into executive session is what I'm asking for.
I
That's
move
right.
I move to meet in executive session to discuss personal issues, understanding that discussion of such issues and oh no, did I go too far?
You're
Yeah,
right.
you're right.
Executive session are specifically permitted under state's open meeting laws, CRS 246204-4F, for the purpose of reviewing the restated city manager agreement and to receive legal advice from the city attorney.
And that you need to cite that second statutory provision for legal advice is the second part of what the mayor read.
Did I?
No, because it's not in the actual recommendation that they put in there. So you just need to add in there and receive legal advice regarding the same pursuant to CRS section 24640224.
And receive legal advice pursuant to CRS 246204-4F.
No,
Thank you.
4024B,
4B.
4B.
Oh, 4B.
Oh, 402.
402
4B.
4B.
All
Is
right.
that clear enough?
Yes.
Jeez.
Can we,
So
Can we just get there?
can we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, would you please poll council?
Counselor Purser,
Yeah, it's
Counselor Cry,
Yes.
Counselor Miller,
yes.
Counselor Hansi,
Yes.
Counselor Bremen.
Just want to point out, you said any further discussion and then went,
Yeah.
yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
right, so we are back to our regular meeting. And so I just wanted to put on the record that this executive session was to review the contract of our city manager. It was discussed at his review that we needed to consolidate all the separate amendments and documents into one document and get that off to our city attorney to get everything combined into one. So there were no changes to that contract besides consolidating that. And then in our discussion, we've got a few clarifications that we're going to make in our motions. So with that, I'm looking for a motion based off our executive session.
I move that we approve the contract presented to council with two clarifications. First clarification being that the mileage reimbursement covers all travel within Mesa County, and outside of Mesa County. And two, that any items not covered in the contract are covered by the employee handbook.
All right.
Second.
All right, we've got a first and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Shannon, would you please poll council?
Counselor Miller,
Yes.
Counselor Hansi,
Yes.
Counselor Cry,
Aye.
Counselor Bremen,
Yes.
Counselor Purser.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0, Mr. Mayor.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mary Elizabeth, for all your work on this.
you.
All
Hi, Ken.
right, we now
night.
adjourn the meeting at 9:19 p.m.